Hello, everyone, and welcome to Weekly Manga Recap here on December the 13th of 2018. I'm Nick, here alongside Chris, and it's a new era.
Nick!
How do you feel?
Nick, is that you?
Oh,
I haven't heard
you've
of you
aged.
I haven't seen you in a fortnight, Nick. Of course, not like the fortnight all those kids are playing. I remember when I was a young boy playing with a young Eisenhower. This was before he was president, but we sure played a good stickball.
In the 1870s.
Oh, I called him Izzy, but we had our nicknames for one
Had
another.
so much fun playing Johnny on the pony.
Yes.
Going down to the shop to buy stuff with our hay pennies.
Oh, 4 hay pennies would buy you a whole candy bar back in that day. And we'd split it and sit on the river, letting Snapper Reeves swift between our feet. It was a good time, except for all the racism.
Never liked the fact that people kept on criticizing Huck Finn for hanging out with his black friend.
I remember
Even he called him N-word Jim. That was fucked up. Like, come on, he's your friend. Anyway.
I remember when they interviewed me for my feelings on Huck Finn so they could better understand the idea of what it was like to be a young boy in those days. And I was like, well, you start by painting a picket fence.
Tom Sawyer told me it was great fun, and I don't know why he would deceive me.
That old wily fuck. I hate you, Tom.
It's like a rivalry that goes back beyond centuries. So, if you actually were a real character, he'd be dead by now. Like, you can stop bearing a grudge. Like, no, fuck him!
I hate that old cocksucker. Tom! I shit on your grave every day I get the chance.
So you turned 30 recently, I understand it, Chris.
Turned 30.
Okay.
And it was not as, magically heartwarming as that one episode of Friends made it out to seem. Where they're like, 30 is just the start of a new adventure. It was me waking up and being reeling from a shit I took. And I'm just like, oh, this is what my life's going to be like now. The dumps are back-breaking to me.
I'm sure that's all that you have to look forward to, Chris. Yes.
Yep, that's it.
Actually, it reminds me of when you would make fun of Paw for being 30.
Yeah, no, I never thought it would come back to bite me.
Yeah.
I never thought I'd get to be 30.
You just thought that it was like, I'll just, eventually disintegrate into dust when I turn 29 in 364 days.
Yeah, I thought I'd find one of those, watches from, the Nickelodeon movie where, they slap it and it stops time, and then
clock
I could
stoppers.
Yeah, I could be a clock stopper, and I'd be, 29 years old, and I'd be like, time stop! And then I just hang out around,
I thought that it worked the opposite way. I thought that if you used it, you would just age faster, because that's what happens to French Stewart in that movie.
Fuck! God damn it, even that doesn't work.
So you would have to, put the watch on everyone else's wrist and force them to constantly be going fast forwarded.
There you go. And then I would never age.
Exactly.
Perfect. Time to get started on that technology. They have it, right?
Okay. All right. Chris, we do have some manga news to talk about today.
There's a new jump start in Weekly Manga Recap.
There is.
Yep.
There is. We'll talk about lation later. But before we get into that, I wanted to talk a little bit about how Jump as a whole is going to be basically completely changing for English readers. If you're like us and you have an English Shonen Jump subscription, you have probably heard about this already. They have been running essentially a digital version of the magazine that compiles a whole bunch of series from the week together into a collection of, that's about 200 to 300 pages long, depending on what all is in it. And you just, go through it and you read it like a regular magazine. That is going to stop next week. And instead...
Yeah, fuck you, magazine.
No more magazine format. All of the series are apparently going to be made independently available via a stream-based subscription service. If you have a subscription currently, then you are going to automatically be subscribed to the news service at basically the same rate that it would have been before. And it's not that you're going to be getting just the news series. If you actually pay for it, you'll actually have access to basically the entirety of the Shonen Jump archives. Not 100% of it, apparently. There is, I don't know exactly what the details are, but there is some stuff that you're not going to have access to. But new chapters are just going to be freely available for everyone. So if you have not been reading Shonen Jump lately because, I can't, pay the subscription service, then, hey, check out the new series on the official website, and that way you will be supporting official releases that go towards actually helping the creators of those manga. People have said that, okay, this doesn't change the fact that in certain countries, the UK outside of Ireland rather Europe outside of the UK and Ireland, for example, it's still not available. So basically outside of a bunch of places that predominantly speak English, Canada, the United States, Australia, New Zealand, and India, it's still not going to be available. It doesn't change that. And that just has to do with where Viz actually has the rights to the series. But if you do live in one of the many different, well, not many different, but the different countries that Viz was offering it to, and you just couldn't see yourself supporting it because you just couldn't afford it, hey, new chapters are going to be free now. So what do you got to lose? And this is going to, in some way, we don't know exactly how yet, be affecting the podcast, because all of a sudden there are going to be some series available for us to read that weren't before. We don't know which ones yet. We will probably find out as soon as it changes over on the 17th of December. And when that happens, Chris and I will figure out what we want to do. Probably what's going to happen is we'll add some series to the podcast in some way or another. Probably won't be doing it like every single week. There is just a new series that we do because we already talk for a long time on this show, and it already feels like sometimes we need to rush through in order to stay under a certain time limit. But we'll probably add stuff to it in some way. And hey, if we're going to have access to, the archives to these series with the subscription, then that's going to also open up recommendations. I think it's going to be a lot easier to read stuff for that. So
yeah, the biggest thing is that recommendations now for Jump series or series that Viz has the publishing rights that are going to be available through that streaming service are now going to be monumentally easier for us to do.
Mm-hmm.
That it was a huge kind of blockade to a lot of, especially like older Jump series,
mm-hmm. And also really, really long running ones too,
where you're just like, it was just an unfeasible kind of thing. But this is a very, very good option for that. And there are quite a few series that they have announced they are definitely going to be going concurrent with like Haikyuu and Act Age, Jujutsu Kaisen, and the other ones too. What's the demon? The
Kitetsu no Yaiba.
Yeah, that one. That's another one they're going to be going. So it's not guaranteed any of those necessarily be added to the recap. Maybe they will, maybe they won't. But the ultimate thing is that if you're listening and those are series that you liked and you want to keep up current with that, recognize that those will also be series that you can be keeping up current with each and every week now. So there's a lot of new options out there, a lot of really crazy stuff opening up. I'm pretty excited for it. And I think some of their implication even seem to suggest they're just going to start trying to maybe do the same with a lot of jump starts going forward, is just keep publishing them till they come to an end. So it's a possibility. It's not out there, but maybe. If you guys love Chainsaw Man, maybe you'll get to see all of it. All 16 chapters.
You're calling that early, aren't you?
Yeah. I like putting my word out there.
It's really exciting. This is this is like purely good news. The only bad thing that I can think about and relate in all of this is that with the magazine format ending, I will have to open up more tabs whenever we recap the series on the week, because I would just flip back and forth. I know, Chris, you would already just open up new tabs for stuff, and I guess I'm going to have to start doing that.
I stopped doing it. It actually was really convenient to be able to go back and forth.
So,
if only because I have a mouse that for some reason closes windows without my permission. So,
oh God. So,
but we'll make it work.
We'll do something though. We will make do. And yeah, this is honestly seriously exciting. This is something that we could not have dreamed would actually happen like 10 years ago. But here we are now. So. It's awesome, and I can't wait to use this to explore some archives and stuff. The one limitation that they've noted is that you have a limit of 100 chapters a day. Okay.
I'm like,
you can only watch 25 hours of content in a day. All right.
I'm like, weekly shonen worthless. Am I right? Boom, roasted.
So really exciting. We'll see. We'll by the time that next month rolls around, we'll probably have a better idea of what we're going to do, especially because next month we're already planning on having to move the recording of the show to a different day in the week for different reasons. So changes are coming to Weekly Manga Recap, but probably not incredibly huge ones, and probably all very positive. So.
Plus, it's also, we're in probably the most tumultuous month for Weekly Manga Recap, because there's like 2 weeks without any chapters whatsoever. So I imagine there'll be a little bit of time of adjustment, and then we'll be there.
Yeah. But for the time being, I guess we'll go over the last issue of Weekly Shonen Jump ever that we're going to be covering on the show. That and of course a couple of Crunchyroll series which are not going to be affected by this remotely whatsoever. So yay!
Huzzah!
Let's get into the recap portion of Weekly Manga Recap, starting off with My Hero Academia, number 209, Match 5 start. Last time, of course, Bakugo and company completely overwhelmed Class 1B, kicked their asses, and threw them in the cell. Apparently, they won in less than 5 minutes, so good job. I do actually really like the picture of them kind of walking triumphantly back. It's actually really weird to see because you don't really see Sero in his costume without the helmet on. It's kind of one of those like Power Rangers sort of moments. I just like, them kind of like transitioning from battle mode back to casual mode as they do this. They get a little bit of, advice and criticism from their teachers, which we've only seen like once out of the other 3 matches. It's a little weird that's kind of inconsistent.
Well, they said specifically that for 2 of them, because there's injured people, that they would wait until after everything was done. Like, because Yaoyorozu was unconscious and
everyone got fucked up
at the 3rd match. They were like, we're gonna wait a little bit.
Yeah. So Aizawa is just kind of like, good fucking job, guys. Then as everyone is, kind of walking away from the debriefing, Kaminari is like, hey, good job, Kachan, you actually made an effort. And he also says something kind of weird to Jiro, which is, you were a total heroine out there. And Jiro just says, well, you can just call me Hero. It's like, all right. I guess that whatever. It's just a weird exchange. Yeah.
Nick, it makes 100% perfect sense. What are you talking about?
Everyone is called Hero in the series. I get that. It's just kind of weird that it was whatever. Anyway.
I think it's Kaminari just being sort of an awkward guy.
Yeah, I think that's it. Yeah. You were a good female hero out there. It's like, why are you making a note that I'm a girl? Okay. Yeah. All Might also has a bit of a congratulation for Bakugo, and Bakugo's just like, because he says that gave me chills, and Bakugo's like, well, then you better see a doctor. It's like, what kind of weird joke is that?
Oh, he's not. Like, I love this panel exchange because Bakugo is just like, fuck you, old man. like just that moment of like, oh, that gave me chills. better go see a doctor. Like, just that shitty line that a kid who hates their dad says to them when they try to, like, connect. I was just like, shit. It's pretty brutal. I loved it.
I like that Deku kind of breaks that tension immediately, though, because he's like, hey, good job. And he's like, shut up, get out of my way. I'm not in your way. And, Bakugo says, I'm gonna, go so far ahead of you, so fast that you're not gonna be able to keep up. And so Deku's like, no, I'll surpass you. Like, no, you won't. Fuck you. Such dorks. So that brings us over to Class 1B, reacting to everything. Monoma gets bizarrely, like, introspective and intelligent sounding. Like, it seems as though he's actually, like, taking things kind of seriously for a moment. And he actually is a little bit understanding with Tokage and says, hey, we haven't actually truly lost this yet. What I want us all to learn is which class treads the correct path. The earnest one that keeps its nose clean, or the wholly undeserving reprobates that bathe in the limelight for all the wrong reasons. And so then they're like, okay, well, we should actually figure out how we're going to win now. Because, of course, the match is going to start up. They talk a bit about how Midoriya is very formidable. How he now has ranged attacks and stuff. And Shinso, of course, chimes in with them thinking, hey, we're going to need to actually definitely take him down. But we know that he can actually break free from my brainwashing. So that's a problem. He brings up the possibility of using Monoma's copying quirk so that they could actually double the mind control ability. But Monoma actually says kind of humbly, like, oh, no, there's a chance that I'll draw a bad card if you rely on me here. But we will need to definitely take this guy down.
Does he have like a card gimmick? I don't remember this guy at all.
The only thing that we've actually seen him do up to this point was way back during the chariot battle, where he would copy everyone's quirk that was making up the cavalry that was carrying him. And Bakugo basically schooled him when he got really, really, really pissed off and, took him down and took their headband that had the points on it. I think that what he is basically just saying is like, yeah, sometimes I get my ass handed to me. So
possibly, I don't know. Like, based on the long, elegant magician suit, I'm assuming maybe he has some kind of.
That could be
to him. I don't know.
He does seem to definitely be a very outlandish kind of person. So
a foppish person.
Yeah.
You would say.
Yeah. So, everyone, of course, is looking forward to the next battle. So it's Deku, Mineta, Uraraka, and Ashido versus Monoma and Shinso, and who gives a shit. There's a weird little moment where they're like, okay, well, maybe, what should we do here? Maybe we can take out Shinso so we don't get brainwashed. And Uraraka's like, I don't know. Well, the others might stay hidden and launch attacks from who knows where. And then they just, out of nowhere, go, Uraraka's like, I float stuff. I melt stuff. I stick stuff. It's like, thanks for recapping that. I've been reading the manga, guys. You don't need to tell me that.
They're like, you may have forgotten all these somewhat, like, important characters' powers, I guess.
Yeah.
Well, I think they're talking
Uraraka's name is Uravity.
I think they do it because they're commenting on the fact that their powers are pretty worthless if they can't actually see their opponents, and they note that the rest of their team, like, their opponents are all people who hide. So, I don't know.
Yes.
It feels like that's the justification for it as a way to be like, here's what all their powers do. And I'm like, but we didn't do these in all the other fights. Like, why is this one? They're like, well, hold on. People may not know who Uraraka is. In our defense, we don't have her do a lot. So And you might
I
only
know she's like the 10th most popular character in the series, but hold on.
and you might only know Mineta from his picture being in think pieces. So let's try to explain.
Or not his picture being in think pieces because people edit over it because they hate him so much. What is his power again? All right, he sticks things.
All right, sticky balls. Which, now that I think about it, very sexual.
So what they eventually conclude is, okay, well, maybe we should lure them into a situation where we have the advantage, and then we'll trap them. And Deku says, yeah, and I'll be the bait. To which Ashido actually points out, hey, didn't you say your quirk was acting weird before, though? So everyone apparently actually is keeping up with some of Deku's edited commentary about his situation. So everyone is kind of concerned that if Deku is actually up to the task of handling this, and he's just like, yeah, don't worry, we're going to win this. And things do seem normal with One for All for right now. So match starts up. Toshinori suddenly gets a phone call from Gran Torino, and so he heads off to take it. And then we cut away to the prison where All for One is being kept. And there are people who are, observing, from like the security room, and they're, I guess what they're doing is they're monitoring All for One. I'm not 100% sure. I think that they're monitoring him, though, because they say that there's like movement. And then they warn him, like, hey, you cut it out. And he's like, sorry. They discuss him a little bit. They also mentioned that Gigantomachia had popped up the other day. And then All for One says, like, I'm sorry. It's just all this nostalgia. It makes me ache inside. I hear my little brother's voice. And that's where the chapter ends.
Bum, 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 bum.
Bum, bum, bum.
Very, like, it's interesting that we went from, like, that cool ending to the end of the third match into a fight where Bakugo and his team just completely schooled people, and I was really in. And then the moment they started this fight, I was immediately back out. I was just like, all right. I was like, all right, that's again. I have to learn who fucking shitty Ginyu Squad, Hyuga, and Hat Girl's powers are. Better memorize all of them before their match, I guess.
No, All for One's brother, One for All was All for One's brother, wasn't he?
Yes.
So do you think that he's just referring to him?
Well, his voice also carries on through One for All. So he might be hearing the power within Deku. He could have some way of kind of also
some sort of connection to it.
Yeah.
Huh. Interesting. Or it could just be a different brother, but
well, that'd be
I guess we'll find out.
Yeah.
We will find out, I'm sure. All right. So, let's move on then to
Food Wars.
Food Wars. Yes.
Shokugeki no Soma.
Yes. Yes, that is what
Freakishly
it's
talented cheeks. That's the chapter title.
Cheeks.
I read it as cheeks when I first flipped through, and I was like, this makes a little sense, I guess. And I was like, oh wait, chefs. That makes more sense.
The noir chefs are talented. That's what the chapter is.
Well, it's a way to develop these characters and give them some level of an identity.
Yeah.
It's kind of working because the way they frame noir is this very weird group. I mean, remember, we introduced them after they kidnapped Erina, and we found out their hideout was full of bondage gear and drugs. And you're like, what is this group? And we see them. One of them is a Nazi woman with a chainsaw. One's a giant clown. One looks like he's like Leatherface. And we see how all these guys cook, and they do have kind of interesting gimmicks to them. Like the circus guy puts all of his ingredients in a giant bowl and then juggles it in the air. And like the weird serial killer looking dude literally drains all of the blood out of his food. And the one girl's got like a torture gimmick. Like it's all very like macabre and weird and interesting. I'm assuming that these are supposed to be like the bottom tier group because the guy who even
Probably.
kidnapped Erina wasn't even in this. So
Right. And then at the end of the chapter, Megami and Takumi and Tsukasa are all preparing to prepare their dish after Anna has said, it's like, they have potential as well, Bookmaster, and that's it.
It's also worth knowing Ume is specifically endorsing the chefs from Totsuke. So it seems like there's a little bit of a friction there of like the Bookmaster is pretty confident a noir chef will win. And it's like, no, don't forget these three. I actually kind of like the single shot of like Tsukasa with like the finger in front of his face. It's kind of a cool idea.
Ninja Tsukasa, yeah.
And Megami being like, oh, wait, I'm fucking here and I'm supposed to be...
Oh, right, I should do something.
I'm supposed to be cooking things eventually.
Well, what you don't see is that she's actually been holding that pose where she's got her, fingers at her chin. She's actually been doing that for like the entire past 2 tests. Like,
we see her and she's back at the second gate. She's like, oh, right, I'm supposed to cook a thing.
Did I remember to place my order for... Did I do that? Did I...
Do I still have Prime? Did I let that expire?
Dad. Do I need to return that Netflix disc? Hang on.
When's the last time I got a Netflix disc? Did I return it, though?
Maybe that's why I haven't gotten anything.
Legally Blonde 2? Why did I rent this? Why did I think this would be good?
Where did you guys go? Oh. So, yeah, I don't know. Something about this chapter I just didn't really care about. I can't really put my finger on it. But it seems like Food Wars does this occasionally anyway, just, introducing some weird chefs. And it's like, okay, well, it's very surface level stuff, though. And it feels like none of these guys are going to be important. I think that the last time that we got a big, like, these 4 people are so intimidating was, like, way back when the underlings of the Council of Ten got introduced. And then they just all got their asses kicked immediately.
I'm trying to even remember one of their names and I can't.
I can't.
I'm really
there was
sitting here
there
trying.
was
There was the guy with like the cross.
The upside down crosses.
Yeah.
There was the Hulk looking guy. There was
2 girls.
2 girls. One of them dressed really weird.
I feel like one of them was like in a Japanese kind of like robe thing. Yeah, no, it's all gone.
Yeah, so
That's how fucking unmemorable they were. All right, let's move on to Eden Zero then. This is chapter 24.
Yay, wait.
What's up?
Yay, wait.
Yay. Eden Zero, chapter 24, Sister Ivory. And our cover page is Rebecca and the little girl hugging a big bear. It's very I got bears alive. I hope he enjoys being hugged. Because they're all up on that. All right. So, last time, the chronophage is attacking. The chronophage, if you recall, is what attacked Norma all those years ago. So, Witch and Happy are talking about this, and Witch explains. So, Gilst is going to get attacked, and it's going to go back in time. She says, well, we don't know how far back it's going to go. It could be any range, really. But the big thing is that anyone who wasn't there at that time period that it exists, that it's going to go back to, will simply cease to exist. So basically, unless it only gets eaten and goes back like 20 minutes, everybody is going to get erased because Rebecca and Shiki and all of them weren't there. So it's a very dangerous thing, and they note the chronophage is going to arrive in approximately 60 minutes. So... Which is going to land on Eden Zero, was going to land at Eden Zero on Ghost and go try to rescue everybody. Cut over, Jin and Shiki are having their fight. I'm not going to lie, it's a pretty boring fight.
Did someone else start translating this series, do you think? Because all of a sudden, all of the technique names are in Japanese.
There was a period of this happened in Fairy Tail, if I recall, and I can't remember if they changed it. I mean, I guess it's a preference sort of thing. I'd prefer, honestly, for it to just be in English, because there's a thing, not because I think English is a superior language or anything like that. There's just always that weird feeling when you translate in Japanese that it comes off for lack of a better word, very weebish, where you're just like, Japanese is such a cooler language and it should be in that. And I'm like, yeah, but then I have to read really tiny text boxes to know what this is actually supposed to mean. Like,
and I can understand it for certain types of series, like, for example, Bleach, Naruto. I think that keeping the original Japanese in those cases, like, all right, it's got more of a, it has to do with the shinobi or like, these ghost samurai. But if you start doing that all of a sudden with One Piece, it's like, well, they're not supposed to be super Japanese, though. They're pirates sailing the seas, and they're based on a lot of, European history and stuff. Or this one is like, it's based off, it's a sci-fi series, and all of a sudden Shiki goes from going, yeah, my magic tech attack with gravity wave, he's just going, Makainu Junior Koha. It's like, when did this happen?
Yeah, the aesthetics do matter, and it does come across as very strange just because it's a big fight chapter at the start, so there's a bunch of attacks being thrown about, and as you said, this is really the first time we've seen this, per se, so yeah, there's a lot of that. They throw their attacks against one another. The thing that carries off for me, though, is this is a very boring sort of fight. I feel like Shiki does this every fight in some variation where he uses his gravity powers to get in an angle where his opponent doesn't expect him, and then he charges and hits their face with gravity, which I guess is not that far off from the variation of not.
Well, obviously it would be way better if he was covered in fire when he was doing this,
So Shiki seems to have the upper hand on Jin, and Jin's like, "You weren't this strong before." And Shiki's like, "Yeah, but that was just a punch up. This is a battle for my team." And then there's like a brief moment of wind blades appearing when Sister arrives. And she's like, my, the little lamb from the church. They notice that Aliga's gone. They're like, oh shit, find him and kill him. And Jin's like, but he's our contract. Like, we won't find many people with money like his. And she's like, then we'll just kill him and take his money. And like,
we are evil.
I guess this makes sense. And I can't tell if this is supposed to be Jin like, what are you talking about? Or if this is him like, oh, right. I guess we can do that. So Chiki's like, I'll just take all of you on at once. And Sister takes off her robe. Like, so I think she's supposed to be robotic. But if she is, I like that she was robotically designed to have fishnet stockings and the fucking garter belt shit.
And she's still talking, with like, thou shalt receive God's divine punishment and stuff, talking, like this priestly or nun type woman, but she's just there in, lingerie and stockings and garter belt. And it's just...
Time to take off my robe so I can fight as comfortably as possible in high heels and the stockings and garter belts. I can't take off the habit though, because we would lose the sexy nun fetish of this fight.
Yeah. I just want to go back like a few weeks to when I said, I actually like her design. It's like, oh, okay. Yeah.
What I truly love more than anything is that there seems to have intricately been a design aesthetic that this robot person or whatever has to actually have like the tops of stock. Like, it'd be different if it just it was like, no, it's black steel and it mimics a stocking, but clearly someone was like, gotta put like that floral pattern design at the top of stockings so everyone knows what it is. Then we cut over to Rebecca and the rest of the women who are escaping. And Nick! Copa's gone! Copa!
Who?
I didn't see... Where's Copa? Guys! Where's Copa? Copa is missing, Nick. It's very important
I'm guessing Copa is the danger girl that had the crisis of conscience.
I was assuming Copa was the little girl.
I don't fucking know.
I don't know, because you can't see. The only person who they make sure you can see is the food woman, and then you see like a couple of the other
and Mira Jane.
Yeah, I would
and Lisana.
I would. Yeah,
they're there still.
They're very important. So they're like, oh shit, we lost Copa. We have to find her, and Rebecca's like, yeah, we're going to go find her. Or you guys head that way. I'm going to go find her. And Pino's like, that would be inefficient. And fucking Rebecca's like, but if we all look for her, they'll find us. She's like, no, I mean, to increase the rate of survival of everybody, nobody can go look for her. And Rebecca leaves down. It's like, but if it's your friend, you'd look for her.
Look at my boobs. Look, I can wiggle the tail.
Yeah.
Cat fetish. Secured. All right. What I'm saying is important. Here, what's important is Hiro managed to put in the nun fetish and the cat girl fetish in the same chapter. So I'm going to go do a thing, but it doesn't matter because Hiro drew my boobs.
Yes. It's very important. I am very curious. So this is supposed to be, I think, a very significant moment because Pino, I guess, is sort of this blank slate personality that doesn't quite understand friendship yet. So in this moment, it's kind of being like I never watched Star Trek, but I guess sort of like, I guess what Data or Spock kind of serve as like the
Data is how you say his name.
I'm sorry. Where she's just trying to be like the cold, logical one of just like, it would be improper for any of us to leave. It would ruin our survival chances for the group. And then the hothead captain has to be like, you eat a bag of shit there, you stupid robot. We're saving all the bitches up in here.
You must have a very twisted view of how Captain Picard behaved.
I mean, doesn't he become Lacutus? So
yes.
That sounds like a pretty dope name. So it's like, Lacutus says you shut your stupid mouth, robot. We're saving
What people don't know about
robo bitches in this.
What people don't know about the Borg legacy in Star Trek: The Next Generation is that, yeah, Picard was only Lacutus for a couple of episodes, but the personality change that came over him was long-lasting and severe.
he started talking about robot bitches a lot more. His words,
he stopped quoting Shakespeare all the time and speaking very dignified way. And he's like, "Yo, bring me some bitches. I'm the captain, motherfuckers."
He shows up with like his Monster Energy drink and a backwards hat, and he's just like, "Where are the space whores at?" They're like, "Ah, good. Captain's here to lead us into battle. Do you have maybe like a Michi quote you would like to regale us with before this battle?"
He's just got cornrows, white boy cornrows now.
He's like, "No one has time for that lame shit. Let's turn on Girls Gone Wild commercials and then go up into space."
Goes over to the replicator and has it replicate a bong for him.
Yo, Data, let's talk.
My name is Data, sir. Fuck you.
Stop talking about your name and start hitting these fat ribs.
Give me a beat. We're gonna record my hot new album.
I'm not a huge fan of Captain Lacutus. I'm not gonna lie. That's because I'm petitioning to change my name to Laculis. Federation said no.
Let's finish the chapter now.
All right, fine. So they have that moment, and Pino has to be like, for friends, you would decrease efficiency. Beep, boop.
Decrease efficiency.
Yeah, so they're gonna have a moment. Cut over to the church then, where Hamura and Weiss are having a conversation. They're kind of finishing up, and Weiss is just like, "I'm not moving until you tell me what you're really after." And then suddenly there's a bunch of sound and a bunch of ether kind of like moves. And Hamura's like, "Oh, it comes from below." So they take the glass.
Immediately ignores him.
Yeah, just like, "Oh, I'm not leaving till you tell me." Oh, single distraction. Get back here. And they take the elevator down, and I greatly enjoy that Weiss literally says, "What we Sam Hill," thus confirming that in space,
Sam Hill
is a very real person, and people still quote that. And we see in this sort of web of pipes, there is a woman who is crucified is not the right word, but the crucified sort of spread arms sort of visual.
Her body is forming the crucifix.
Yeah.
Yes.
Within the pipes, and they're like, "That is without a doubt one of the Demon King's 4 shining stars, Sister Ivory, who looks like a regular nun and not the sexy one with mega garter belts and everything."
I love how incredibly clean she looks. Like, for someone who's been held prison in a network of pipes, she, like, her habit, her robes, everything is perfectly clean, unmarred, intact. So clearly she has been well taken care of.
Well, someone comes in and dusts her every once in a while. It would be,
It just comes in and dry cleans her habit every now and then. Yeah. So yeah.
I don't.
Chris, you haven't met the real Sister Ivory.
So this does make more sense. It's just another one of those things. I don't want to harp on this because it's really irrelevant to what this sort of series is. It does feel like a missed opportunity to do something more interesting with the character and to just be like, because we met Sister and you're like, oh, she works for this villain organization that's okay with like kidnapping and selling like people into slavery and stuff like that. And like, oh, no, that's just the evil one. There's a good one who's down there. I'm like, okay. It's always the easiest out, but fine.
That's it. That's done. Chapter's over.
Yeah.
Yay. All right. Let's move on to discuss some Shonen Jump starts. We got the second chapter of Chainsaw Man, where basically it's mostly about the dynamic that exists between Denji and where's her fucking name? I don't know. The girl who has basically recruited / enslaved / adopted him. And because at first he thinks like, oh, this is going to be great. And then she kind of just starts immediately asserting her authority over him, sends him out to go and kill a demon that has apparently kidnapped a girl, and tells him to go and kill the demon before he can, while threatening him with getting euthanized if he's useless. So, yay! So he's pretty upset. He's like, oh, I'm getting treated like a dog. And then he's like, oh, right, my dog's dead. Oh. When he comes across the girl and the demon, it looks as though they're friendly and getting along. And so he's like, okay, well, hey, maybe we can run together. Run off together and we'll all be safe. And they hold hands and she starts going, ha ha ha. And he's like, yeah, ha ha. And she's like, ah. And she's turned into this muscle demon thing. And it's like, ah, gotcha. And the demon has basically taken over this girl's body. And he is also tearing Denji apart because he can control any muscles that he's touching. So they're just like, all right, fine, fuck you, and transforms into a chainsaw demon and rips it apart immediately. And then he comes back with a little girl on his back and collapses straight into his boss's boobs. Because, oh yeah, whenever you use chainsaws, they come out Wolverine style through his body, and he loses blood from doing that. So, important thing to note. He actually explains how he became like this to her, saying, oh yeah, Vegeta sacrificed himself, and now he's kind of like part of me. And she says, I believe you, actually, because I have a good nose, so I can tell that your friend is actually alive inside you. And not in the poetic sense. Your body actually has two scents, human and a devil. And he's actually really happy to hear about this. Then there's a weird moment because he's like, okay, well, I'll eat the Yodon then. And she says, well, you look kind of unsteady. Can you feed yourself? And he's like, yeah, I can. No, I can't. Feed me. And she feeds him, and she's like, is this good? You like it? He's like, yeah, woof. Creepy. Okay. He's immediately like, yeah, I'm a dog. I'm a good dog. And then eventually he says, hey, what's your name? And she says, my name is Makima. And Denji says, what kind of guy do you like? And she says, someone like this boy named Denji. He's like, oh, Denji. Oh, wait, that's me. And that's the end of the chapter. It's really weird.
It's an interesting chapter. It's not the sort of thing you usually expect to see in Jump. We kind of talked about last week where it's like very violent. But it is feel like it's meant for definitely a slightly older audience than necessarily shonen. I don't necessarily have a problem with it. Like, there's something with the art style that hasn't clicked with me yet. I think a large part of it is that there's a lot of just like plain white backgrounds.
White backgrounds, yeah.
Like it's you can go entire page without any kind of background whatsoever, which is a little bit distracting. But I'm very curious on it, at least in the sense of it feeling so different from everything else.
And it is, it definitely has a feel about the, like, yeah, this is like a professionally published series. So I imagine that as time goes by, the art skills are going to improve. But it's not even so much like, oh, it's bad, because I mean, it's easy to tell what's going on. Some of the fight scenes do look interesting. I like the design of some of the devils. It's more just, it seems like it doesn't fit in Shonen Jump because it's that more rugged kind of style, I guess you could call it.
Yeah. All right. Do you want to try taking your video down again? You're cutting out a little bit.
Yep. All right.
So let me bring that up. All right. And then I guess we talk about Neolation.
Neolation, or Zero Semicolon Lation.
Or Persona 5. We didn't have the rights to it, but here's this.
I mean, hackers are wizards, Chris.
Yeah, hackers are wizards. So yeah, that's the entirety of it. He's super good, and he's gonna be the brains. The other guy's gonna be the muscle, and together they're gonna clean up this town of the evil adults.
Yep.
I don't mind. I actually kind of enjoyed this series, if only in spite of the main character being a tremendously unlikable dickhead through a lot of it. But I part of me wants to be patient because I'm like, all right, maybe it's just meant to convey kind of how this character is difficult. Like, he's so good at, machines that he's bad with people kind of mentality. But it is rough when you're like, God, the dude in this series is such an asshole. But they do have a secondary lead who's like a normal guy who's like nice about shit. So I'm able to kind of dig it from that angle.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. It is kind of weird. It seems as though it's a requirement for hacker based series to just have unlikable douchebag protagonists. That seems to be like a requirement for them, doesn't it? With fucking Bloody Monday, protagonist in that one, unlikable hacker douchebag, and then this one. So.
As based off the cover, like the 2-page color spread, I get really strong Persona 5 vibes from this. So I can't, I see a lot of influence there. So I think there's some potential to it. I just don't know how sold in it I am.
Also, the main character's name is Neo, but N-E, lowercase n, lowercase e, and then 0. So lame. So.
No, it's super cool. You don't get it.
He's awesome. This is such a 20 years too late kind of vibe. It's like, he's a hacker named Neo.
I mean, I used to think that, Nick, but have you ever gone and looked to see the names that this isn't even hackers, but just what professional gamers go by, and you're like, man, some of these names are so lame.
It's because they're teenagers when they come up with them.
Exactly. So that's
why I called myself Y Roller of Time for years, because I was a lame teenager. So
yeah, we all do that. Except for me, I never did anything embarrassing as a teenager.
Lord Von Quack. So
shit.
All right. Yeah. Let's move on to We Never Learn.
Yeah, We Never Learn. Question 91. In the shadow of geniuses, X inadvertently opens up. So it turns out they did kiss right on the lips.
Yep, just got proved you wrong.
I was just saying, hey, we never know. But Uruka's like, yep, I'm gonna study abroad, and I really appreciate this because the first thing Yuiga does is he congratulates her. He's so excited for her, and he does have that moment where he's like, oh, okay, I can kind of see what's happening, but I think it's very important that she tells this big news, and the first thing he does is he's super excited for her. Really, again, It just goes to show what kind of selfless nature he has.
Yeah.
And she explains, like, yeah, I still have to pass the exam, and I didn't tell you before about it. I've been pretty confused, but, I know what I want now. I want to be the best. So great that you'll never be able to take your eyes off me. So great that I can really inspire you. And she says, so I'm going to swim with everything I got, so just watch me. And, of course, Yuiga, because he's fucking as dense as a rock, is like, yeah, sure. I mean, I'm always going to be watching, obviously. And she's happy, so she walks off, and Yuiga's just like, I guess, I don't know. She always is cute. And I'm like, God damn it, dude, pick up a fucking hint. Christ.
Yeah, hang on a second. Let me get this. There we go.
I don't know if that's a bit because we can't.
Hang on, let me put this back on for a second. It's like, so Yuiga says that,
right?
I just turned the camera back on.
We didn't get a visual.
Motherfucker. Well, fine.
I do like the idea.
I rolled up a wad of paper and I just smacked it to make it indicate that I was smacking him over the head with it.
Oh, okay. There. I like the idea of like Nick having this entire shtick that's off screen and off camera. You're like, no, hold on. All right. And then it goes up the string very slowly. And as you see this Rube Goldberg machine going on behind me.
It reveals like a Sistine Chapel painting.
I'm like, Nick, we didn't see it. Like, no, fuck it then. I'm just going to burn it all now.
Oh, it's completely worthless then.
Right. So there's this moment then where, of course, Aruka is just like, that kiss was just practice. See, it's a totally normal greed overseas. Yuiga's like, yeah, greeting overseas. Of course I knew that. And they get to the next day, and Aruka's two friends are like, no, you idiot. Normal
would be kiss on the cheek.
And she's just like, no, what did I do? But they're so impressed because they're like, oh, you really put the move out there for that. And they're kind of tossing with her. But then the one short hair friend's just like, oh, but Yuiga's surrounded by all those cute girls, so we got to be vigilant. And this, as if on cue, we cut over to Yuiga studying with Ogata. It's been a while, I think, since we've had a chapter between these two.
Yeah. Well, especially because, Fumito had the 5-chapter arc going on, so.
Yeah. Wow, you know what? I just realized, and I probably shouldn't say anything because I feel like I'm going to curse the next chapter. We haven't had Kirasu in a really long time.
Next chapter, Chris.
That has been really refreshing. I know, it's going to fuck me over in immediately the next episode, but I appreciate it this time. So,
it is kind of one of those curses, though, having the fact that we hate the most popular character in this series.
Yeah. I don't hate her. She's just always the least enjoyable part of this series.
So you hate her. Okay.
By process of elimination, sir. So they're studying kanji, and Ogata asks Yuiga, like, how do I write this? And he's just like, all right, just separate your mind from what happened. Don't worry, just focus on this. And he's like, which one? And he looks up, and the three options are like, give a clear greeting, pledge one's love with a kiss, or the fish I just caught was the Japanese kisu. And of course he's like, God damn it, why?
All of them are different ways of saying kiss.
So Ogata, seeing something's wrong with the Yuiga, presses her head up against his, and it's just like, 36 degrees Celsius, or I don't know.
36.7 degrees Celsius.
It's like, fuck, man. Slightly warm, but no fever. And then Yuiga kind of pulls aside, and he sees that when her book bag gets knocked over accidentally, that all these psychology books come out. And he's like, oh. And he thinks to how hard she's studying, and thinks back to Fumino and her passion for the stars, and the scene that just happened with Haruka saying that she's going to be the best. And Yuiga has a very forlorn expression on himself. And he says, do you ever doubt your chosen path? And she's like, no matter what anyone says, I'm always going to choose my path for myself because it's my life. And she's like, oh, well, if you're feeling tired, how about this? And I don't know how comfortable I am that Ogata immediately went to hypnotism to figure this out. But she's like, yeah, we'll just hypnotize you a little bit. Sometimes it lets your subconscious and, relieve some stress. And he's like, I don't think it's going to worse. And she's like, yeah, I don't know. Oh, boom. And it just flops into her chest. It took 2 seconds of hypnotism for him to be completely subjected to it. But she says, "Please tell me what's bothering you." And
this is actually how hypnosis works too.
Mhm.
Like, because hypnosis is not like, no, you will obey my command. It's basically there are ways to get yourself to just kind of let the things that are in your subconscious kind of come to the surface. It's how hypnotherapy works. So
Yuiga starts listing all the girls, and he's like, they're all so amazing, and they know what their goals are, and they work so hard, and when an obstacle comes up, they grapple it, and they're just so amazing. And that's why I feel so sad, because I don't have that.
Mm.
And she says, "Is there anything you want to do?" And he's like, "There is, but I can't, because it'll inconvenience my family." And they're like, "Well, that's fine. You could be selfish sometimes." He's like, "No, I can't. I'm the oldest son. My father's gone. I have a lot of responsibility." And Ogata gets very sad because it's very heartbreaking for her. And she's like, I don't understand where you're coming from, but what if you try just being selfish with me right now? And she kind of grabs onto him, and we cut over then to Yuiga waking up, and he's in Ogata's room. He's like, did I fall asleep? What's happening? And then there's a ploof, and I like it because Yuiga's like, ploof? Like he knows the sound effect. He's like, oh, and we see that it was her skirt falling to the ground, and Ogata is taking her shirt off. Blurf, what's gonna happen next? I have no idea where this is supposed to be going next, but...
Well, presumably she's going to get changed because she's going to fucking bed. But I do really, really like this chapter, at least up to this point. I mean, the fact that it's Ogata doing this so that Yuiga can, slump against her breasts aside, this is something that we have really not seen from him up to this point, that we've kind of always been wondering about, which is just like, you keep on talking about, this stuff's like, do you have like a passion of your own? And it seems that he has an interest of his own, but he just, can't allow himself to follow it because he's got to get a good job, get a good education, get a good job, and make money for his family. And this is something that was, addressed before this point, but just, very, very briefly prior to this with the conversation between he and his mother. So it seems that this is probably actually the next big thing that a character in the series has to address. And I'm glad that it's going to be something related to Yuiga himself, who just tends to just kind of be the observer or the helper, the one who helps other people with their big issues. This makes him seem more like a character unto himself. So good stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I truly appreciate having this kind of angle with your lead character because it feels very earnest. I think you could force some schlock to put a drama on your harem lead, but generally speaking, you don't want to because you don't want to give them too many personality traits so that fans can't see themselves in them. But I like Yuiga having this because it also puts a give and take to this relationship too, where it's not just Yuiga coming in and solving all these problems. It's like, oh yeah, he's got his own things to deal with too, and the friends he's made are hopefully going to be able to help him out through this.
Yeah.
And then, of course, it has to end with Ogata taking her shirt off because, this is the sort of series this is. But hey, what are you going to do?
Ogata's, primary character attributes seem to have shifted to, she is a robot and she has big tits over the last, 50 or so chapters. So, yeah. Let's move on then to Dr. Stone, Chris.
It's time to get stoned!
Yeah, that, yes.
So, I am a stone American. Fight for the rights of Stoneicans. I am a real... Nick, sing it with me. Stone American.
Fight for your rock.
Well, hold on. Fight for your science. Fight for the Bryans. There's a Brian somewhere. And he does, he plays guitar over all the important Dr. Stone locations. The Gorilla Tank and
the cave,
fighting
fluid.
and the fighting pit. That was an important location. Hold on, I'm gonna give me some time. I can come up with full lyrics for this.
Okay,
When
so
it comes, what rhymes with crashing and is science? All right, I'll figure that one. I'll come back to that one later.
So Senku and company have to actually get something to fuel a proper ship so that they can sail across the ocean. And Senku has decided it's going to be fucking oil. And hey, it turns out the primary export of Shizuoka actually is oil, which shocks the hell out of Gen. He's like, yeah, there's, the Sagara oil field. They stopped pumping once profits dipped, but that black gold should still be down there. A treasure spot where we can dig up some of the highest quality oil in the world. So Chrome is going to set off with Kohaku and Ukyo, and they're like, yeah, we're going to go on an expedition, and we'll get this resource. Yeah, awesome. But the captain that they have recruited, whose name I have already forgotten, sorry, I just don't really like him. So he says, like, hey, you know what? If you get that oil, and then I will help you navigate to the other side of the world, but I'll be responsible for your lives and risking my own. So in that case, I will require a reward, which will be full rights and ownership of that oil field. And Gen's like, seriously? Come on. And the captain just like, come on, the cost of your own lives is at stake here. Yeah, so if my price is too much, then you should just go get another captain. And Senku says, you're the best available, so sure, whatever. Go ahead and rip us off. I do love that. He's just like, yeah, okay, go ahead. Gen, of course, is still very worried about this because, he says, like, but, Ryusui could just hoard all the oil himself and then we wouldn't have any fuel for the voyage. And Ryusui says, well, if you guys want oil, then you'll have to buy it. And he has a worker at the village make a stamp for him so that he can stamp out and print his own currency. These dollar bills that have like a dragon on them. And from this, he basically immediately becomes a millionaire. Like he gets this nice little gazebo built up. A bunch of people are, fanning him and bringing him food. And Kinro are like, what the fuck is this? Come on! Io comes in and he says, hey, hey, you want to be friends? I'm a former cop, so...
And he has his eyepiece back.
He has his eyepiece, and I'm sure it's going to be perfectly fine and stay that way forever.
It's going to be there with him forever.
The rest of his life. So Ryusui says, like, look, this is Dragos, the exclusive currency developed by Ryusui Corp. So he's got his own Bitcoin, basically.
Yeah, basically. Start investing now, guys.
Yeah. And he says, like, I'm going to be selling oil $100 per milliliter, so you better earn some. And he was like, what the fuck do I care about oil? And there's the guy who's been serving him fruit says, like, hey, where can I spend this cash? And Ryusui points over to where Suika and, oh gosh, what was her fucking name? It was fucking Tsukasa's younger sister. Began with a Y, I think.
Little sister, who cares?
Little Tsukasa's sister. So they're selling cotton candy and ramen for like $100, $200, and Yo's eyes burst out of his sockets again. Break the stone fragment again. It's gone again. It's gone forever. It's never coming back.
Just like Tsukasa or Yo's eye fragment. It's dead, never coming back. That's the
exactly. So Ryusui's like, yeah, they've already engaged in the economy, so they can buy stuff up. Yeah. And the little girls are like, yeah, we've got to do this in order to raise money so that we can help out the Kingdom of Science. And the manga artist is selling manga for money. Yo immediately buys into the capitalism thing. The reporter lady is, of course, worried about Ryusui, and Senku just says, hey, look, currency is another fabulous invention of science. It represents people's hard work condensed into physical form. And since he went to the trouble of creating money, we'll just have to exploit the system for all it's worth. Yep. So people are saving up money, running around doing errands so that Ryusui will pay them. And Nikki is pretty upset with him, of course, and she points out, hey, there's no oil to sell just yet, so what value do these scraps of paper even have? And Ryusui says, excellent question. The value of currency has little to do with what's behind it. It's about trust. Trust that Senku's chums will find an oil field. That expectation, that hope will turn my scraps of paper into real treasure. And sure enough, cutting over to Chrome's group, they find a waterfall, and they start to go down a mountainside to explore it. Chrome slips and hurts his head and gets a boo-boo for a bit. But then Kaga points out, it's like, okay, yeah, beyond this point, the land gets really rugged. It's west of that great peak. And Ukyo looks at this mountain, and he's mystified for a moment, and he says, of course. How could we have been so naive about just how long 3,700 years really is? And they set up the cell phone and phone over to Senku, and they report that the shoreline is rugged, the inland is really rugged, and Senku says, of course, it's pretty obvious if you think about it. Real scientists would be disappointed in me for forgetting that it happens every few centuries. The eruption of Mount Fuji. Each blast a cataclysm capable of reshaping the land itself, and during the 3,700 years that we slept, it must have blown its top at least 4 or 5 times, maybe as many as 10 times. So any modern topographic map made from our knowledge is 10 billion% useless. So, of course, they're going to need to make a new map in order to actually properly navigate.
Nick, do you think the giant Gundam statue survived?
Yes.
Okay.
I'm sure. I'm sure it did.
I'm ready to keep going then.
So they're going to have to gradually explore and create a new map. And without it, they're not going to be able to dig for oil properly because they won't have any landmarks and they won't know where the hell the oil is actually going to be for them to drill for it. So Suika looks around and she says, like, I wish that we could, instead just ride around on a big bird and look down from the sky. And then we could see exactly what the land looks like. And Seika's like, yep, we're going to need that. We're going to need some hemp. And every last person here has got to start gathering up tons of it. And with this, we're going to make use of all those dragos they saved up. Because unless they get to work harvesting hemp, that all-important oil is never going to be ours. And so we cut over to Yo and a bunch of jerks who have got a bunch of money. They're like, yes, I'm rich. And Gen says, like, oh, no, if we can't find that oil, then the Draga for oil exchange is going to be meaningless, and the money you worked so hard to give up is going to be worthless. And, of course, everyone freaks out, and Gen's like, it's okay. There's a way to make sure that all of that stuff that you've got there is not going to be better than just paper, and it's to harvest hemp. And so they go out and grab a bunch of hemp for everyone so that they'll be able to preserve the value of their money, make a huge fucking pile of it. And with this, they're going to create hot air balloons so that they can actually properly explore the area from the sky. So,
yeah, sounds exciting. You ever been in a hot air balloon, Nick?
No, I have not.
I've never been in one, but I can remember a couple times going to there used to be a hot air balloon show around here. And it was always a somewhat exciting thing. Thinking back on it, it really was the class divide because we were the poor people who sat on the ground while a bunch of rich families got in hot air balloons.
Oh, yes. Look at me up here above all the commoners. And
we're sitting there like, golly gee, wouldn't it be great to be one of the rich people up in them hot air balloons?
You can keep on dreaming, you pieces of garbage.
Wow, I can't wait for we try to get out of this parking lot and it takes us 3.5 hours.
Jesus Christ.
It really did actually take us a really long time to get home. And this is before cell phones or anything like that, so you just sat there and talked to your family. It was awful.
I hated going on those, like, let's go watch something in the sky little trips. I hated them. I hated going to fireworks shows.
I think we only ever did it. I think we did it twice. And I don't even know if they still do it anymore. It's one of those things, I guess, looking back, I'm glad I have the memory of. But yeah, at the time, it's one of those things where you're like, fuck. Well, no, Replica, because Game Boys, I think, did exist back then, but this was before, like, the Game Boy SP, so there weren't lights for them. Mm-hmm. Or if they were, they just weren't ones that we had. So this, it got done at, like, 6 o'clock or 7 o'clock at night. So when you're sitting in the parking lot for 2 hours trying to get out, it's dark and, your batteries run out. And yeah. And I'm saying this is a problem, if like one of my grandparents were alive hearing me right now, they'd just be like, fuck you! Never got a Game Boy in the morning either! But yeah, no, it was a very interesting time. Anyway, great chapter, 10 out of 10. What was it about?
Okay. Currency. Yeah. And how easy it is to manipulate the market. All right. 7 Deadly Sins.
All right, let's talk about 7 Deadly Sins. Load the correct page, please. Chapter
293.
When, quote-unquote, someday comes true. So, last time, Bond showed back up. He's been freed from purgatory, and he's back with Elizabeth and King and Diane. And immediately everyone's like, oh, thank God Bond's all right. Elizabeth walks up, and she's like, and Melodious? I trust his soul was all right, too? Bond's like, don't you worry, princess. I guarantee he's coming back for you. Then he kind of looks around and he says, you guys go to where the captain is. I'll join you once I've accomplished my goal. And then we cut over to where big battle is happening with the demons. And the fairies are kind of trying to hold them off. Particularly Eileen is there trying to hold them off. And she looks like she's been through some shit. You can see quite a lot of battle scars and battle wounds and everything like that. A lot of bloody faces. Gerard is like, don't push yourself. She's like, no, I mean, hey, I'm only able to do this thanks to the temporary loan of the Way of the Hateful Dead revival. So, I'm going to push myself as fucking far as I can get, really. So, she's summoning all these big attacks and, she's creating openings. And then she says, yeah, that's why I have to fight too, because Bond's fighting and I wouldn't, be able to face him otherwise. And her, she's saying this as her wings start breaking and they start kind of fluttering away like flower petals, and she falls from the sky. And she thinks to herself, Bond, I wish we could have one last time together. And then we see like an image of all these demons kind of closing in to like snatch at this easy prey. And then we see an image of Bond's hand, and it just kind of snaps, just makes a crick. And in that single movement, he seemingly kills every demon that's around them, or just pretty much like shatters their faces. And then he catches Eileen, and he says, sorry I'm late. And they have a very sweet moment where she's like, I'm not dreaming, is it? I mean, I used up too much energy, but I'm happy, and all I wanted was to be held like this just one last time. Everyone's very sad because our eyes close and our arms fall, and they realize that she's dead. And Bond just says, it's not the last time. And he uses Gift, his new ability, and he starts pouring life energy into her. And I think it's Gerard who says this. I can't remember, but I think so. It's one of the other elves. It's just like, if you do this, you're putting too much in. You're going to use everything you got from the Fountain of Youth, and you won't be immortal anymore. Bond is absolutely sure of this, pours everything in, and Eileen wakes up. And she's like, are you sure? You've lost your immortality. He's like, I don't care about that. As long as I was able to keep my promise to you. Because someday I'll steal you away, Elaine. You're mine for the rest of our lives. And they hug in this big embrace. That's where the chapter ends.
This is a very sweet chapter.
Absolutely.
It's you don't really see this kind of chapter from a lot of the shonen battle series that we read. Just this entire chapter just dedicated to these two characters fucking love each other. Yeah. That's the entire chapter is based around that. It's a huge over the top dramatic moment, and it's just dedicated to finally they're getting their happy ending. And I love it. So
I do too. And you know what? I honestly, 7 Deadly Sins has been a very special series in that it has been one of the few shonen battle manga that has not really shirked away from like committing to romance in any way. Mm-hmm. And I do wish that became more of a trend, because like it is very satisfying. I'm not even somebody who really likes necessarily romance or pairing in like these series, but it is satisfying that when it's set up that it actually like gives you a payoff like this, as opposed to being like, I don't know, one day Sakura and Sasuke probably get together. I don't know.
Yeah, it was look, they got married between now and the time skip.
Yeah, he like
they're married and have kids now.
He fucking finger punched her forehead like 7 times, so that means he loves her. It's nice getting a moment like this where you're just like, it's a very sweet moment.
Forgot about that.
It means he loves you. He doesn't have to say it.
He just pokes you in the head. That means he loves you.
And and this isn't the first time we had King and Diane. I imagine we're gonna get Melodious and Elizabeth in a more like in this iteration version. So and maybe something with Merlin and Escanar and
there's Elizabeth and Gil Thunder, all sorts of different explorations of like, hey, these characters are in love, or one character loves this other character, and that affects the way they fucking behave. So yeah.
It's just satisfying to see it play out when a person who's like, let me deliver a satisfying, cool battle conclusion also says, let me deliver a satisfying romantic conclusion as well. It's a very satisfying moment.
Yeah. All right. Let's go on to talk a bit about The Promised Neverland. It's, Chapter 115, Jin and Hayato. Last time, Ray and Emma and Dawn had come across a couple of humans who were cornered by demons in the forest, and they saved them from them with incredible efficiency. Just shoot them in the head. Blam, blam, blam. Arrows and guns. And then Ray holds one of the two guys that they've saved at gunpoint, and he's like, don't make a move. Not until I've said my sweet catchphrase. And instead, the guy just bows down to him and thanks him profusely for saving their lives.
It's like, thank you so much, baby. Memories?
But I haven't explained to you how superior I am to you yet. What are you doing? Stop it.
I don't know how to react to this. Normally, people don't actually treat me with respect.
So they go on like that, and they're like, "Oh my god, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you." And then they realize, like, "Wait a minute, you guys are humans." It's a weirdly comedic moment because, like, Ray and Dawn have the giant face reactions, like, "Are you serious? You'd only just notice?" It's always kind of odd whenever that happens in The Promised Neverland. It's because it happens so infrequently.
This series has become so strange in the past month, where it's become more and more like traditional shonen with like, let's have a bunch of exaggerated gag like reaction sort of things. Like, let's set up a bunch of characters with kind of crazy designs. And I'm like, this is I feel like I need to like wink at the manga, like, are you in trouble? Just blink twice for yes. Like, is someone in your house?
We had to become more marketable because we're getting an anime. I had no choice.
I would not be stunned if that's the case, which is strange because if the anime is ever going to get to this point, it would have had to have already been successful. It's not going to get to the third arc off of like, well, maybe like 3 seasons later it gets better.
Yeah. So they say that they've actually been looking for the kids under orders from William Minerva, which of course is shocking news to Em and everyone else. So the two of them get brought over to the rest of the group, and the duo are incredibly excited over everything because like all these runaways are so capable and they've actually treated their injuries and stuff. So of course Emma starts asking questions like, "Hey, so William Minerva, like he's been releasing farms? Did he made a community?" And they're like, "Yeah, William Minerva is incredible. He's sharp. He's smart. He's like a god. In just half a year, he's destroyed many farms, saved hundreds of children, and is taking care of them." So, of course, all of the kids are like, "Wow, this is great, yeah." And the two reveal their markings on their chests, saying, "Yeah, we were saved by him as well." And a couple of the kids look over to Adam because his tattoo is in the same place, so they wonder if maybe they're from the same place then. They of course ask for more questions, exchange some information, and say, "Hey, we can guide you to our base, and we'll have food, a place to rest. There's medicine." Of course, Gilda is concerned that, hey, have you not been discovered by the demons or the Ratri clan? Because if you've been causing all that trouble, wouldn't they be onto you? And they say, no. We haven't been attacked by our enemies. We've got powerful people protecting us. And to us, the base is literally paradise. Above all, as long as we have him, our boss, we are invincible. And of course, all the kids are like, oh, yay, things are going to be great from now on. Things are going to be fine now. No.
Everything's going to be okay.
Even Emma is like, Mr. Minerva's alive. He was safe. I'm so glad. And we have allies in this world. We're going to finally meet him. And Ray's like, I am suspicious. And he asks one of the two guys, Jin, how far away is your base? And Dawn actually does something kind of clever because he's like, yeah, and is it near that, what was it called? The giraffe's neck? And Hayato, the other one, says, you must mean the jaw of the lion. So I was like, okay. So maybe these guys are actually telling the truth if they're actually, using the proper terminology here. And they conclude that, like, okay, but these guys aren't actually lying. They know about the broadcast. They know about the jaw of lions. So, okay, well, I guess we can trust them. And so they accept the offer for Jin and Hayato to escort them to the William Minerva's base. And when asked, like, are you okay with this? Because we're like outsiders. Like, no. This is what the boss wants, and we owe him our lives. So yes, we'll do it. So they say it's going to take them a few days to get there. But a problem arises because Chris is dying.
Oh no, Chris!
No, not Chris. That guy who...
I think he painted, or he liked art, maybe? He's not the cookies kid.
See, this is the real consequence of having the nameless people die, and then it's like, well, they're just dead. Is that it's like, oh no, not this guy. Now I don't care. Like, you've programmed me to not care, when before... it would have actually mattered at least a little bit more because every life matters to Emma. Now I can't really buy into that as much anymore.
It's the very solid example of that scene from Order and the Stick where they're just like, no, what's your name? Like, whatever his name was. He's like, oh, I think
Daigon,
I'm okay now.
Yeah. Daigo, yeah.
Yeah, and you're like, it's that same thing where you're like, I guess Chris survives by the nature of him actually having a name. But the other guys that just died, it was just like, oh no, those dudes, or whatever.
Like if only Yugo and Lucas had died before this point, then this would have more weight still. Because then you could still buy the, like, oh no, Emma is desperate not to lose anyone else. And I know that that's what you're supposed to think, but because there are characters who are dead who just don't have names and aren't really remembered by name, it's like, well, then they were not important.
Yeah, it's like everyone is like a person in my family. Like, what about those guys? I don't know, like the cousins 3 times removed or something. I think they had a
Yugo, Lucas, the other 3.
Yugo, Lucas. I want to say Mac, Tristan. Was one of them named Oreo for some reason? Like, I think there's like a weird name in there, like Oreo or Triscuit. It was like a cookie name or something, like a snack kind of thing. Anyway, I'm very sad they're gone.
He's just like Hershey, Nestle is like, Emma, you're just thinking of chocolate. Like,
no, I'm not. I'm always gonna miss Godiva.
I'll always miss Reese.
I'm gonna miss Kit Kat and Snickers and whatchamacallit, all of my favorites.
Wonka bar.
Emma, I think you're just hungry. No, I'm not. How dare you?
Emma, have a Snickers because you're not you when you're hungry.
How dare you say that? Sweet, sleep peacefully, sweet Reese's fast break.
Oh God.
I'll always miss you, white chocolate peanut butter cup.
I'd be able to contribute more to this if I actually ate chocolates.
You'll live on in my dreams, tropical Skittles.
Oh, Starburst, you were the best of all of us.
But only the strawberry.
This is just as bad as when we lost Jolly Rancher.
Oh, this cruel world.
All right. No, Ben, Jerry.
I feel like there was so much left to say with Chunky Monkey and Cherry Garcia.
Oh God! All right, so Chris has been at shape.
Yeah.
He's not.
Oh, we're talking about the manga.
Yes. Everyone's like, well, what about Mujika's herbs? I'm like, no, we already applied them. Maybe he's got an infection. We've got to do this, but we don't have any antibiotics. So what are we going to do? He's going to die. And Emma starts freaking out. And Hayata says, well, there is a way. We could save Chris. There's a farm nearby that we could steal medicine from that we could use. And we'll lead you there and we'll sneak into the farm. So go. We've barely gotten over this revelation, and now we've got a new wrinkle to have to deal with. Okay.
Yep. It's a very, very significant thing. Gotta save Chris.
Yeah.
I am more intrigued by the idea of like, to do it, they're gonna have to break into a farm.
Yeah, that's different.
It is, but at the same time, I think I'm only interested to see what a different farm looks like. Because honestly, the breaking back into a farm thing was always kind of been teased out there as like, that's what they're going to do to save Phil and the other kids. So, I mean, unless they're just nixing that, because Andrew kind of hinted at like maybe he did something to Phil or whatever, maybe there's something there. But it does at least strike at something that's intriguing to the core of what this series is about.
Right. Let's try and get through our next couple of series really quickly then, because we got to talk about World Trigger at the end of this. So.
Page 185, Dream Eater. The heroes...
This is Black Clover, by the way.
Yes, Black Clover. The heroes are trapped inside, well, most of the heroes are trapped inside Dorothy Unsworth's, the elf version's, glamour world. They just realize that if they make Dorothy think something, then it becomes a reality inside this world. So a bunch of exits appeared, and they were like, let's go! But then Dorothy snatched all of them up and changed. She's like, no, not going to do it. And very much to simplify things, they use a combination of techniques to make Dorothy see a visual of herself. Even it's in smoke, but they're like, all she needs is a moment, and then she believes it's a reality. And what she essentially does is create the real Dorothy Unsworth, who is a very peppy person, apparently, when she's not sleeping.
Right.
Charmy's very upset because this character has just taken her Lolita character, who's actually much older spot. And I was like, is this character supposed to be Lolita? Because, I mean, she looks kind of short, but Charmy looks like a fucking child. Like, Charmy looks like she's 6. This character, I'm like, I don't know, maybe 13 at the worst or something like that. And this Dorothy and the other Dorothy, Elf Dorothy, Orphe, they have their big fantasy magic world battle, and their battle's so chaotic. There's sea serpents and giant knights and bubbles bursting and flame attacks, and it's all so crazy that Dreamworld can't support 2 of them, and it tears itself apart, freeing all of them. And with themselves free, all they need now is for Luck and Magna to team up for a big attack to take out the real, the Elfsworth in the real world. And that's where our chapter ends, as the 2 of them prepare to land their giant magic attack.
Yeah. I mean, there is some cool shots when the 2 Dorothys are fighting. I like the, multi-armed knights. Actually, I guess there's just 2 knights there. Oh, well. Fighting with the snakes. There's like fire tigers and sharks flying through the air. It's a really cool visual. But it's all right.
I like it. It's definitely a more creative end to this fight than I was worried we were going to get. It does fall into that realm of like imagination reaches this breaking point the same way that because that wasn't Grammy imagined something.
He just couldn't imagine a body containing how much power Kenpachi had.
Like, it was an incomprehensible thing. I like this ending much, much better. I'll say that. I guess this is also our quote-unquote introduction to the real Dorothy Unsworth. I don't know if this is... It'd be great if they were like, like they meet her in real life, they're like, why aren't you peppy and excited like you were in the other one? She's like, what the fuck?
Fucking tired.
She's like, I'm not like that. You just made up a person and imprinted their personality onto me. There you go.
Yeah. All right. So going on from there, it's One Piece. Okay. So it's fucking One Piece. Chapter 927, Otoko the Kamuro. People are enjoying Sanji's soba, and I like how everyone is like, it's like, this is good stuff, Sanji's like, I don't fucking care what you think, except for Robin. Because he's freaking out because she's, in her geisha guise right now. And we get follow-up from the last chapter where people were upset that Sanji had intruded on someone's territory. It turns out it wasn't a restaurant owner or something like that. That would have been too fun, I guess. It's basically like you opened a business here without paying for protection to us, the mob in this area, the Kyoshiro family. One of whom is named Kaku, so that's...
Interesting.
Yeah. So... Robin brings up that's like, oh, I was in a banquet hall belonging to a person named Kyoshiro not long ago, so I guess these are his henchmen. And it's the same guy who had said that, hey, Shogun Orochi's a coward. So they now know, oh, that guy must have been a Yakuza boss, I guess. So these guys start immediately wrecking up the place, knocking a bunch of soba into the ground, including this little person had, which is really weird because they start crying while laughing, which comes up later. So, of course, Sanji is really, really, really pissed off over this because they've, knocked a bunch of food to the ground. So, Usopp and Robin move out of the way, Usopp continuing to eat soba noodles as he does so, while Frankie and Sanji take care of things. Sanji, kicks one straight to the ground. Frankie grabs a guy and leaps 300 feet into the air before German suplexing him.
I fucking love Frankie.
Ow. And then Sanji grabs a bunch of noodles off the ground and starts force feeding him to the guy that he knocked out. The last guy runs off while saying, oh, you guys are going to regret this, of course. So all the people that had gathered around when the fighting started have run off, except for the little kid who got their soba knocked out of their hands. And Sanji serves them a one last bowl that they had and say, hey, eat this up. And it's a little city girl named Toko. And she laughs while crying again and says, I've never had such yummy soba. And they kind of immediately take to Toko. And Toko says, oh, you should say, with the honorific O in front of it. And so Robin's like, oh, okay, Otoko. And she's like, that's the Japanese word for man, and I'm not a man. Ha 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 ha. And apparently this is hilarious to Frankie and Usopp. So.
I mean, it's moderately amusing, I guess.
It's just kind of one of those things where it's like, I'm not laughing at anything you say while you're looking at me with those demon eyes, kid. That mouth is going to devour me alive.
It's ready to annihilate your soul.
So Toko thanks Sanji for the food and then says, "Oh no, I'm late. I've got to go. I've got to head to the Oiran's procession." And Robin realizes, "Oh, you must be a Kamuro." And Toko says, "That's right." And it's already getting started, so I've got to hurry. Bye. And she invites them to go and watch the procession because the Oiran's very beautiful. Everyone is kind of taken with this kid, and Sanji's like, "Oh, we can go to an Oiran's procession, yeah!" And he starts to immediately go into woman hungry mode. And Frankie's like, "What the fuck are all these things that your dad's talking about? What's an Oiran? What's a Kamuro?" And immediately this random woman appears out of nowhere and is like, "What is an Oiran, you ask?" And so it's actually Robin's instructor from before, who was instructing her in the ways of the geisha, and says that she's been looking for her. And says that the Oiron is a courtesan, the top idol of Wano, a superstar. Oh no, she said superstar, so Frankie freaks out a little bit. She just kind of, gives a little bit more information about this particular Oiron, Kumurasaki. A regal as a god, womanhood perfected. That is Kumurasaki the Oiron. And everyone's like, oh, wow, okay. And then there's a weird moment where she says, like, don't take my word for it. See her with your own eyes. Look, you can hear it now. The cheers of excitement and quickening rhythms that surround her presence. And when she says, you can hear it now, she cups her ear. So then Frankie and Usopp and Sanji all cup their ears too. And Sanji's ear extends out like a foot away from his head. There's some weird little moments like that all throughout this chapter. Just, I don't know, something about the way that his ear sticks out really grabbed my attention. So of course, that's the big thing that's going on. And then the woman says, like, all right, hey, I know you've been hoping to meet Shogun Orochi in person, so come back and prepare at once so that we can do that. And yay. We don't see Komurasaki in full. We just kind of see her striding by and see like the robe that she's wearing, but don't see her face. And people are like, oh my God, she's so beautiful. She's blinding. Toko comes and manages to reach, I guess, a member of the procession. And but she actually seems to know Komurasaki personally because she says, like, oh, you have me worried. Then we cut to like the aftermath of her presence because at least 20 people have been knocked out from nosebleeds just from being in her presence because she's so beautiful, Chris. She's so beautiful.
Very beautiful.
Yes. Then we get to the one mafia guy that escaped reports back, and they're going to go and send someone that's going to cause a big scene. And meanwhile, he's like, I'm going to show Shogun Orochi. We actually cut to inside of his house where there are fucking dragons, I guess, talking to him. There's a bunch of dragon heads there. I don't know if that's supposed to be the wall itself or if they're like shadows of actual dragons inside the room.
I don't know if it's supposed to be a literal thing or if it's supposed to be the interpretation is that he's like the secret thing kind of hounding her. Like he's this Hydra or some snake thing that's coming after her, or like if it's a literal thing that he's right behind her, if this was supposed to be symbolic that he's like, I'm coming after you now. Yeah, there's a lot of Japanese mythology here that we're not gonna get because we're not experts in that field at all. So do be patient with us if you're knowledgeable on this stuff and you're like, obviously this is a reference to the 8-headed Orochi snake. I'm like, I don't know. Sure. I'm not doubting you, I just don't know that entire mythology.
So yeah, that's One Piece, and we don't have any One Piece next week, so I guess we'll see it next year. So
I think there's one more chapter within this year. I think there's like a week where we do get series, like it's like Christmas break, a week we have it, and then like a New Year's kind of break, I think.
Yamato no Orochi is the famed 8-headed serpent of mythology. So
there you go.
All right, so yeah, that chapter happened. World Trigger. Pardon me. It was actually kind of, it was weird. I don't know if it's just going to be published this way from now on. If they were like, okay, Ashihara, you just make monthly chapters now. I was like, I'm okay. Well, I'm going to frame it like it's 2 chapters. So.
Fuck you, only 2 chapters. And pass it off as 1 monthly chapter. Like, I mean, you do.
That's fine, I guess.
No, fuck you. I'm fighting the system.
Very beautiful 2-page color spread to open up the chapter.
I will not lie. I had a small moment when I saw this because this is the same layout they do for their anniversary chapters, and this is essentially the quote unquote 4th year anniversary, I think, of World Trigger. That's what this is supposed to represent. I mean, we're long past 4 years of World Trigger, but that's what this is. And I love, like, there's got to be something interesting to putting all the images like next to one another and seeing how they change. Like, you've seen, like, Yuma now doesn't even bother holding a thing; it just becomes a scorpion. And Osamu's, Tryon, you can see like it's sort of split apart for the spiders, and Chica's has become black to show that she's using those weighted bullets. It's a very cool thing, a very awesome visual.
And butterflies. Look at all the butterflies.
I love it. I love the colors that World Trigger uses for these. I love the visuals of it. It's just great.
Yeah. All right. We're going to then, let's see. We're picking up to where, Taichi's gotten eliminated off screen. Fuck him.
They didn't just show them fucking like stabbing his face off. Explosion.
So he's been forced to bail out, and is the first one eliminated from the match. So Suzunari wins. Let's turn off the light strategy. Yeah, that's over and done with. No luck there. So from there, Yuma and Hughes just start making their way through the mall, and they're moving together. They vault themselves up through the giant space between all of the balconies as they move. And Ozma, sees this happening and warns his two teammates. And so he's able to actually warn them about this because they're moving while wearing bagworms. And then they dismiss the bagworms when they actually close into the fight going on between Suzunari's squad and Kageura's squad. And so everyone's trying to figure out, like, well, what's going to happen here? Because we've got like a 3-way fight on our hands. We don't really know exactly a whole lot about what Tamako Mizuki can do, because the only thing that we've actually seen him use is the bagworm up to this point. Although I thought that he was using Escudo in addition to Yuma, but I could be wrong.
Well, nobody knows what he's used to this point. Like the only thing that he's visually done to this point is be in rank wars with Kogetsu, so right. People can assume that he uses Kogetsu, but visually right now no one knows what his usual trigger setup is outside of the fact that they're like, oh well, he's using bagworm.
Right. So a bunch of bullets get exchanged between them. Nothing's really hitting because everyone's got their shields up, and Hughes starts communicating with Osamu and says, okay, are you making your way up? And he's managed to evade Emma and the two Ozma squad attackers. And so he's like, okay, and now Emma's isolated. So the two attackers are trying to catch him in a pincer move. A whole lot of stuff is happening all at the same time because there's so many people involved. And Chica's just kind of like, all right, I'm going to go get a snack, guys. He's gone. So everyone's like, oh my God, the 3-way attack's going to happen. Yuma and Hughes properly engage, but they do so by summoning a bunch of Escudo in between Zoe and Kageura. So they just completely cut him off they completely cut Kageura off from everyone else so that they can just deal with him. Kageura is able to react with his side effect, and there's a freaking ton of meteor bullets that get launched by Hughes, but it's used as a distraction so that Yuma can come in. He starts using his blade in a bunch of different ways to try and evade their attacks. Like he sticks it out through the side of his leg, and he actually chops off Yuma's arm with it. And so he's like, you're trying to take me on 2 at once, huh? Because he's even landed some hits on Hughes with that counter. And so Hughes just says, like, no, I'm not really trying to double team you. Because he delayed a bunch of the bullets instead. So they've launched a 3-way attack on him. And Kageura gets fucking wrecked by this. Yeah. His legs get ripped apart. And they realize, like, he held back half the bullets from the meteor so that they were able to launch a 3-way pincer attack like this. And Osamu is trying to figure out what's going on here because they're like, Hughes could have also used the Viper like we had planned before, so that he could change the trajectory on it. He could have finished him off with that. Kageura is basically finished off at this point, so he bails out before he can be finished off as we start the next chapter, Hughes Part 5. And Zoe comes bursting through the wall, and actually a really cool kind of pose, because he's like just kind of taking a long step through the wall as he comes through.
It looks like he does actually just kick his way through the wall.
Yeah.
Zoe! I like to think he just shouts his name like a Pokemon.
Zoe!
Zoe! Dunk, 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 dunk.
And it looks like he's going to rescue Kageura at this point. I kind of gave away the result of this whole thing, but it looks like he's going to rescue Kageura at this point. But Hughes summons a bunch of Escudo around him, kind of traps him inside of a prison briefly, and then Yuma hops inside of it and fucking assassinates him. Chops off his head after kind of whipping behind him. But before he goes, he blasts the ground beneath him just as he bails out. And as a result of that, a hole appears in the floor, and Kageura goes darting through it, falls to the floor below, and then he's forced to bail out from that point for the loss of Tryon. So everyone's like, oh, okay, well, it looks like Tomoko was really racking up the points there. And then they realize that the point actually went to Suzunari instead, because the huge blow that he took during the sword fight with Murakami, that was considered to be more damaging than anything else that had happened to him up to that point. I guess because it was just so close to his Tryon core.
I think an also very significant part of this is that they didn't finish him there because he rolled away and then died from a leak, as opposed to them like cutting his head off or something like that. That would have gotten them the point no matter what. But because he kind of got away, he disappears in a sense that they're like, oh, okay, well then it just goes by who did the most damage.
Well, the commentators give credit to Kageura because they managed to prevent Hamakuma from scoring the points. Mm-hmm. So now it's left with Murakami's duo trying to take on Yuma and Hughes 2-on-2. But Hughes is continuing to use his bullets with straight ahead attacks, and so he's like, oh, I see. So he used Viper bullets but shot them straight so that they would just think that they were asteroid, and now he can use the Viper's redirection abilities for real. And then he just launches normal asteroids. And someone's like, what? Why aren't you using Viper and curving the bullets? And Hughes just says, I'm not going to use curving bullets in this battle. We'll defeat Suzunari 1 some other way, and I'll explain why after the battle. And Osamu just thinks back to the conversation that they had literally years ago at this point, where he promised that he would help Tamakoma to win so that they could make the away team for his own sake. And so Osamu's like, hey, do you have a plan here? And he's like, yep. All right. It just goes with it. But this does introduce a bit of a wrinkle into the dynamic between Hughes and the rest of the team, that he is still going to seemingly operate on his own because he thinks that he knows best, it feels like.
Yeah, he said that as much when he said, I'll follow your orders unless I think what you're ordering is wrong. So we're kind of seeing that in here, but I do like that there's this level of trust, because they could immediately just play in you like Osamu being like, well, I can't trust you if you don't follow my orders. But Osamu's like, do you have a plan? He's like, I do. So he's like, okay, what does that change for me? Like, I like that Osamu's going along with this. It's a very, like, kind of complicated thing, but it's satisfying to see this not go the way it feels like it would in almost every other series, where it's just like, oh, I can't trust you kind of thing.
Yep. And that's basically the end of the chapter from there. There's a little bit more stuff happening to set up the next phase of the battle, because the two teams of two are closing on each other. Emma is getting ready to go 1-on-2 against Azuma Squad's two attackers, while he's also trying to figure out what he can do from his position with the four above him. So still a lot of moving parts in play. But yeah, that's the end of this chapter. I'll 2 chapters. So there we go.
Very satisfying sequence of chapters. There's so much that's happening. I mean, first and foremost, Kageyara Squad just got fucked. Like,
Yeah.
Emma's still out there, but like the other 2 of them are gone. And you think back to like, fuck, Azuma's squad has barely been involved in this shit. So like, I'm really worried that like we're gonna see those 2 guys around and they're gonna do some shit, and then Azuma out of nowhere is gonna just fucking snipe somebody. But we also don't know what Chica's doing yet.
He comes back in, he's just dragging Chica's limp carcass behind him, and they're like, I thought the Tryon bodies didn't do that.
It's like, this one did. When you do what I did to it, yeah, it does it like this then. I'm like, shit. But yeah, no, I'm pretty excited. So I really like what this shows out of Hyusei. I mean, it's crazy how much Tryon this guy has. Like, it's to this point where I'm almost like, why don't people use Escudo more? Because that shit seems really useful. I guess it helps more in a terrain like this, which is like indoor.
Yeah,
because
a lot of flat spaces. So
yeah, less maneuverability.
Yeah, they've definitely been showcasing how useful this trigger is. So
yeah, it really does make you be like, man, fuck, I really want that shit.
I just want to summon walls everywhere. Yeah.
Oh, shit. So yeah, I'm very excited. I liked a lot of what we saw. It's curious to see World Trigger in a monthly format that's just here's 2 chapters, but I'm curious to see. I think it may be a transitionary thing, and maybe like once this fight ends, he could Ashiara can like kind of pace things out more.
Yeah, it might have to do with like the volume, the timing of the chapter releases for the volumes as well. But I guess we'll see.
Yeah.
All right, that is going to do it then for Weekly Manga Recap. Chris, favorite chapter and MVP?
I'm going to give my favorite chapter to Seven Deadly Sins. I love that chapter. I really appreciated having that kind of sentimental moment. It felt very earnest and earned, and I think it was an extremely cool moment for Bond, too. Like, just that, he just snaps his wrist, and all of a sudden all these monsters just, like, are looking like their faces got ripped apart. It's very, very satisfying.
I think I'm going to have to agree. There were several really good chapters this week, but that was definitely the one that took me the most off guard and surprised me the most. So,
and my MVP is going to be Hyusei. I really enjoyed what we got to see of him this week. He looked very cool and confident. I'm just appreciating that, like, there's this new. I'm very happy for Osamu that he has somebody else on his team to rely on. So it's like, oh no!
Oh, thank God we don't just have to rely on Yuma to do everything.
Like, Yuma lost his arm. Like, fuck, he's gonna be fucked now. And it's just like, oh wait, he has another super competent guy alongside him. Yay!
I'm giving mine to Yuiga. I thought this was a very good character development chapter for him, and it was really nice to see that, you can have his own things going on as well. So
absolutely. Totally agree with it.
And that, guys, is going to do it for Weekly Manga Recap this week. We want to thank you guys for joining us. You can listen to the show live when we record it on smashcast.tv/ReloT and twitch.tv/ReloT. Right now it's Thursdays around 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time, although that's probably going to be changing next month. To stay updated on that stuff, you can follow us on Twitter. At WMR Podcast is the official podcast account. At ReloT and at Nick F. Time are your hosts. And be sure to check out past episodes of Weekly Manga Recap in a bunch of different places. weeklymangarecap.podbean.com, our YouTube channel, and on iTunes. And if you check us out in those places, make sure to drop a subscription, leave a comment, leave a rating, help us out with the algorithm, and help us become kings of the hobby section and overcome the woodworkers. Be sure to send us feedback, ask us questions for our Q&A episodes, suggest future manga for us to read. You can send all that stuff via email to weeklymangarecap@yahoo.com, or drop your recommendations in the Discord channel, where there's an entire channel set up just for making recommendations and keeping track of the series that we have already done reviews on. We would like to extend a special thanks as well to our Patreon supporters. Your support allows us to create all sorts of fun bonus content for you guys to enjoy, as well as to Steve Mann, our tile cut artist, and Infamous Blend for the stuff that you do to help us out. And that's going to do it for everyone.
Bye, everyone.
That's the end.
Yeah,
go home.
We're all wrapped up here. Yeah, do we, maybe we should, close, a magazine as we put the last issue of Shonen Jump away.
We are going to change our format as well, so that there is just an individual recording for every single series, chapter by chapter.
Some people would probably enjoy that greatly. Some people's like, wait, I could just listen to just the One Piece stuff and not your World Trigger bullshit. I'm like, no, you have to stay for that. You must stay. All right, that's gonna do it. I don't know.
I said bye, everyone.
Bye.